Well, hello everybody. Welcome to East End Books, Provincetown, and we're thrilled to have you here. Still sort of pre-season. I know Derek's probably feeling like me, excited and already exhausted. They're about to start. We're both fellow booksellers here in Provincetown, and we're so thankful that we've got nice weather today, and we primarily have shade at the moment. We're really excited to have everybody here. As you can see, we're not quite out in the park yet. Once that use is allowed, we'll be out there, but this is condo property here, so it's, we still got the smell of the ocean and the view and everything, which is really nice. So I want to let you know a couple things as usual. We will have signed copies of the book available after the event, so people that are watching the recording of this live stream, just email when you buy it on our website, just in the memo section, say, hey, I'd like a signed copy. And when we run out, I'm going to try to get, see if I can get signed book plates, or if we get a big order, I'll ship them to Harron and see if I can get them signed. So I'll sort it out if you want to do that. And so I'm going to mention a couple things, but I just wanted to show you this. Look at this cover of the book. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Great. I mean, and of course, the content is the key, and it's a brilliant book. And you'll see that soon, but it's really nice when you get a cover that really pops as well. So that's fantastic. Really excited about that. So our next event is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and we've got a poet coming in from Volcano, Hawaii, with a beautiful new book that we've got in the store. So if you're here tomorrow, we encourage you to come. And every night we've got events this week. And the end of the month, which is coming up on June 29th, we have very excited to have Stephanie Burt, a Harvard professor, coming with their new book, Super Gay Poems, which is a great collection if you take a look at that. And I'm also looking forward to Stephanie giving us a little bit of some additional details about Harvard's, I think it's now 82 lawsuits that Harvard's filed against that administration in Washington, and so we get some insights about that. We're excited about that. So there's something else to say. Oh, I was supposed to ask you, and I'll just do it because I got an email. Is this book an audiobook?
Yeah, there is an audiobook too.
Great.
Yeah.
So also on our website, you'll see when you go on there, you can search audiobooks as well. So you'll be able to buy the audiobook if you prefer the audiobook as well.
You get like 15 hours free if you have Spotify, so that's how I got to listen to Britney Spears' as well.
Oh, great. Oh, super.
Go and take advantage.
Yeah.
I think.
A lot of people don't realize that. I think you have it as well. It's like, instead of giving your money to Amazon's Audible, the American Booksellers Association provider for audiobooks is Libro.fm. And they're a great company, and it's a bunch of book lovers and computer geeks who founded it. And the sound quality is fine on Amazon Audible, but it's better even the sound quality on Libro.fm. And both with them and with the ebook provider, which is Kobo for ABA, you own those copies completely when you purchase them. You may recall that with that other big company, there have been controversies over the years where they pulled back the ebook and the audiobook. That doesn't happen with Kobo and with Libro.fm. So I encourage you to take a look at that, and you can get that audiobook and designate it to your preferred, your local bookstore. If they've got, you can designate that bookstore, so you don't have to go only on the ones that have it. That's what I'm saying. So take a look at that. And then just look at our schedule. We're going to have the usual amount of very wide, diverse range of book events this summer, both here and then continuing all summer with our partner at 20 Summers and their new space, the Stanley, which is behind it's in the Schoolhouse Gallery WMR building. So take a look at their website for events that are happening. They'll now be doing events year round, so that's pretty exciting. And then yes, the Provincetown Library Book Festival is coming up again in September, so we look forward to seeing people there as well. So what a great group tonight that we have. Harron Walker, who's a contributor, and let me just remind people that among my faults, which there are many, I can butcher pronunciations and things, so I'm just in advance saying that in case I do that. So Harron is a contributor to Martha's Trans History and 99 Objects and Sex Change in the City, a forthcoming anthology from Girl Dad Press. Her work has appeared in New York Interview, GQ, Out, and other publications. Mike Funk is a writer and musician who has been working on a killer neo-noir set in a late aughts queer punk house. Say that 3 times fast. This guy. And Derek McCormack is a writer whose work has appeared in the LA Review of Books blog and HowlRound, among other places. He's currently working on the authorized biography of the musician Klaus Nomi, as well as a novel. Derek will read and also facilitate a Q&A with Harron Walker. And I did want to mention that the one thing I almost forgot to mention is for those of you who are going to be back, who are here all summer, are going to be back in August, save the date, August 15th. I'm co-chairing an event at the Commons that'll benefit the Theater Offensive in Boston. I'm also chairing their capital campaign for their new building that's being built in the Fenway. And so this is, if you haven't explored them, they do, right now they're doing events all across Boston and other places. There'll be performances on the 15th, but this is going to be one of the few, maybe the only theater company in the US that it's for everyone, but the primary emphasis is on Black and brown, queer and trans playwrights. And this will be the first building. It's an amazing thing. Marty Walsh, the former mayor, arranged for 2 crucial things to help this company succeed long term. One is, the rents are brutal. And if you are familiar with commercial rents, you're paying what's called triple net. It's not just the rent, it's expensive for for-profits or nonprofits, and they're a nonprofit. But they've got a deal, and they have a 99-year lease, and then the rent is fixed at $100 a month.
Wow.
So anybody that gives money who's worried about, will this company fade in 2 years because the rent's gone up too high, or the lease is not going to be reduced? No. So I mean, it's really amazing. I just think it's fantastic, and especially always, but especially what's going on now in the country, to have that kind of support. So if you're around, it's not really a fundraiser on the 15th. It's kind of like pay what you want, $10, $20. And then the second opportunity will be December 7th. Anyone in Boston? I'm co-chairing with Christy Cashman, the actress and author who you might have seen 2 years ago with Jane Seymour when we had her book, The Truth About Horses. Christy and I are co-chairing an event at the Quinn private club in Boston. It was the old Algonquin that Ken Falk was the creative designer for that. And we're going to do an event there, and that's going to be fabulous food. We're going to be in the newest restaurant that Ken Falk designed, which is called Lunasol, which is kind of like being in Sao Paulo. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. So we're going to have food, music, and performances. That is a fundraiser, but for that kind of event and that food, it's going to be, regular tickets are $100. The money is going to be coming from hosts and sponsors. So those are 2 events I just wanted to mention, far off, save the date. And very excited again. We're so thankful for the weather and to have all 3 of you here. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you, East End Books, for having all of us. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Harron, for inviting me to read. I know Harron from, she is my girlfriend, so no nepotism at all.
At all, no. Pure meritocracy.
Can I mention one other thing?
Sure.
My new speaker system is coming on Wednesday, so it's not here yet. So I just asked, if you would just project, if you can do that. Thank you.
You got it. I will do my best.
And sorry about that.
Yeah, everyone can hear me. Fabulous. All right, I'm going to start reading. This is the first chapter from a novel that is in progress, temporarily called House of Strangers. So here we go. It was the summer they banned Four Loko. Ash woke near dark, drenched in sweat from a dreamless nap. He peeled himself off of a flatulent air mattress and stumbled over cardboard boxes to the switch, wincing at the cold overhead light. He almost turned it off when he saw it, a brown stain blooming in the corner of the ceiling directly above his bed. Was it new? He hadn't noticed it when he came to see the place the week before. But the room had come to him fast and cheap. He knew better than to expect it to be good. Water damage was hardly a surprising amenity in a punk house named Maryland Mansion. Jody would take him back. A few months tops. They'd run into each other and start the whole thing again. He could set his watch to it if he wore one. He wouldn't even have to learn all of his new housemates' names. Still, he had to make it habitable for now, at least consolidate the boxes so he could get from the door to the bed without tripping. It was a pale, narrow room that came furnished with a small dresser, desk, and dusty box fan left behind by a previous tenant. He fished a box cutter from his jeans and started opening one he thought contained laundry, but turned out to be books. He pulled out an old paperback and tried to read it when there was a knock at the door. "Sorry, did I wake you?" Valerie Hart had been his sole point of contact for the house so far, the only one of his 4 new housemates that he'd met. She wore a threadbare black hoodie with a $200 haircut. Her face was framed by tightly cropped and professionally colored red bangs, done up with a thoughtful bandana. He gestured for her to come in. "Looks like you're settling in." She leaned on the door frame, casting a plucked eyebrow at his bare mattress. "There's chili downstairs if you'd like, it's vegan. And I wanted to remind you about the house meeting tomorrow. Can you still make it?" "Right, yeah, of course." He had forgotten. "I have work, but I'll be there at 6. "Perfect, you'll meet everyone then. Also," she paused unnaturally, "just FYI, no biggie, I saw a banana peel in the garbage. We actually keep a compost bin by the back door. Yogesh takes it to the farmer's market on Sundays." "Oh, well, I don't think that was me. I've only had pizza today." His stomach had been suffering ever since he slammed a large black deli coffee driving the moving van over from Jersey. A banana probably would have been smart. "Are you sure? Everyone knows better by now." There was a distant look under her winged eyeliner. Actually," he rubbed the back of his neck. "Moving in was so hectic today, I might have had a banana and forgot. I'm sorry." He wanted to be the diplomatic roommate, quiet and unremarked upon. She shook her head. It's okay. I shouldn't have made accusations." Her smile stopped at her mouth. "We'll go over the compost rules tomorrow in case anyone else needs to be reminded." She gave the room a final once-over. "Let me know if you need anything." She turned to the stairs before he could ask about the stain. He still didn't know what to make of her. During the interview, she'd asked all these questions like, what did solidarity mean to him, and did he know what nonviolent communication was? She also said it was an intentionally queer space and looked at him expectantly. Jody had sometimes called him her partner instead of her boyfriend. He said something about his queerness being a kind of solidarity, which even he didn't buy, but it worked. As he dug around for a table lamp, he wondered if he should have just chosen a random Craigslist sublet with normal roommates instead. He reached for his phone. Nothing from Jody, but there were 2 missed calls and a text from Theo. "Please don't ignore me, dude. I'm trying to help." Ash sighed. He started typing "I'm not," then clapped it shut and tossed it on the bed. Theo was trying to be a good friend to everyone, but Ash felt the right course was to disengage. The move was abrupt but necessary. He couldn't stay in Jody's house, not after what happened. It was almost funny. He hadn't even hit the wall that hard. It was just shitty drywall. He never meant to frighten her. He could send her some money so she could patch it up. Maybe that would help. He could see why Theo probably thought he was being irrational, leaving for a shitty little room in the city. But there was an appeal to him beyond just running away. The rent was cheap, and the house was huge. It was a standalone old house with a bay window and a steeple on the 3rd floor. The unfinished basement hosted a rotation of local and touring bands. Maybe he'd join a band or restart his photo zine. If he kept his head down, he could go about his life like normal, maybe even better than normal. His phone buzzed again. Ash walked out of the room and creaked down 2 flights of stairs past dozens of anarchist propaganda posters. The house wasn't without its pockmarks from hosting, he guessed, at least a few generations of punks, but some original architectural details had survived. He passed a stained glass light fixture that dangled over a fleet of bicycles in the foyer on his way to the kitchen. The linoleum floor stuck to his socks as he shuffled to the stove. He ladled himself a bowl of vegan slop that even a dog wouldn't eat and sat down at the kitchen table. He noticed that the kitchen was orderly without actually being clean. Everything was tucked away in its proper place, but there was almost a permanent sheen of grease coating every surface and a resilient scent of cumin. The chili tasted better than it looked, but his stomach still turned from poor eating and stress. He almost spooned his leftovers into the trash when he remembered about the compost. He walked to the back door, which faced a courtyard of concrete and crabgrass. He was surprised to find ashtrays and beer cans where they might have had a garden, but remembered it was a show house. Someone would probably just piss on the tomatoes. The compost bin was just a black plastic tub that had to be duct taped shut. He opened it to a rancid, earthy smell, but it was empty. No banana peel. Maybe she left it there on purpose, or maybe he was supposed to move it himself, a test he'd already failed. He went back to the kitchen and saw the tentacle of a peel sticking up from the full trash can. He wondered if she'd put it there herself, but but brushed it off as a crazy thought and tossed it in the compost. After another hour of unpacking, Ash lay back on the half-made bed and stared up at the stain. It looked darker now in the lamplight, like a bruise. If not for the box fan chewing the silence, he might have caught the sound of his phone buzzing again. Another message from Theo lit up the darkness as he fell asleep. "This isn't like you, man. Have you thought any more about finishing the accountability process?" And that's all. Thank you. Harron's turn.
Okay. So, cool thing about writing about something that ends up being very relevant when the book comes out is that sometimes you're writing about Medicaid policy for trans healthcare coverage, and your book comes out the same week Congress is like, we're gonna ban that. So that's been exciting. So I just wanted to read an excerpt from the book that kind of deals with or like looks into Medicaid coverage for trans healthcare, and then read something really fun that I'm working on about a bunch of divorcees who live at an apartment complex and they're kind of all insane. Both speak to our times. Okay. So whether or not a state's Medicaid program specifically excludes something like phalloplasty or gender-affirming surgeries, such procedures are often still effectively excluded for being, quote, experimental or cosmetic. Missouri, for one, denies public funding for experimental or investigational procedures in drugs, as well as for, quote, cosmetic surgery, including but not limited to breast augmentation and rhinoplasty, both of which I've personally undergone, and both of which were covered by insurance, as my provider in both cases determined that these were medically necessary, gender-affirming surgeries. Tons of quotes in this. The labels that insurance companies use to grant or deny coverage to patients might seem self-explanatory, words like experimental, cosmetic, investigational, elective, medically necessary, gender-affirming, so on. But they're anything but. Not only are these terms arbitrarily applied, differing from state to state and between insurance providers, they're also totally meaningless, as the Canadian journalist Alex V. Green has explained. They wrote, "What is necessary and life-saving, or what is cosmetic and ephemeral? These labels are political and variable, shifted as desired by those with the power to shift them." Further exemplifying the absolute void of meaning at the core of all these terms, Ohio's Medicaid program explicitly excludes, as of 2015, quote, gender transformation, as well as, yet as of 2019, the state was reportedly still not enforcing that exclusion. Inversely, Idaho has no explicit exclusions for gender-affirming care, but as a 2022 court case confirmed, many trans people in the state have had their requests for coverage indefinitely delayed, if not outright denied, on the grounds that their desired procedures are cosmetic and therefore not medically necessary. My own facial feminization surgery was delayed for months following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, after New York decided to halt all elective surgeries for the foreseeable future. Overnight, a surgery that had been deemed medically necessary by my insurance provider suddenly very much wasn't. And I just had to sit there and wait until once again it was. My point here is not that my FFS was undoubtedly medically necessary, but rather that medically necessary is not a description, but a tool, one given only to those who are truly deserving of medical care, as agreed upon by insurance companies, medical providers, and politicians. It can mean anything, but it also means nothing, its definition shifting the moment you cross a state line. I remember back in 2023 reading about how Missouri wanted to restrict access to gender-affirming care on the grounds that it was, according to Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who I love, who issued the proclamation, experimental. Like many other people, I'm sure I had this knee-jerk reaction to this word. It was just a flat-out lie, sensationalistic mislabeling, deployed for its unfortunate but very real political expediency. I mean, how could these treatments be considered experimental when so many of them predate me, predate my grandparents even? But what could I do with that trump card? Challenge Bailey to a debate? Hop into his Twitter mentions and tell him he used the wrong word. Bailey might very well believe that trans healthcare is experimental, but honestly it doesn't matter. That word does mean something within the context of American healthcare, given the way that it's used to deny coverage for all kinds of medical treatments. those that save a person's life, as well as those that simply improve its quality. To be experimental is to be controversial, is to be medically necessary, is to be unfit for coverage. Why won't my insurance cover this treatment? Because it's experimental. Why is it experimental? Well, because if it wasn't, insurance would cover it. Without further context, it means nothing. Experimental is just this maddening, binary, self-justifying code that decides whether you're able to get the care that you want. When Bailey or any other lawmaker invokes the experimental nature of gender-affirming care in order to pass some ban or other, it's not a verbal snafu born out of ignorance, but a reflection of precisely how well they understand the medical establishment and the ways in which they can wield its power against their chosen medicalized targets. No matter how well we present them with the right words, they're not going to use them. They want us gone, plain and simple. And this is one way they can do that. And now I'm going to read something that fits the mood of this beautiful beach. So this is just the very short first chapter of this novella I've been working on called Veronica Place, about a bunch of divorcees who live at an apartment complex called Veronica Place. If there's a comment on Medicaid denials in contemporary politics, I'm not aware, but I'm sure a reader will find it for me. Chapter 1. Anne stepped off the bus. This shouldn't have happened, but it did. A violet valise in both of her hands, one for her clothes and the other for whatever. She stood now at the steps of a place that wasn't home, a place that wasn't yet home, but could be, she hoped. For now, though, this place was simply a place. For many women, this was, in fact, the place. The place to be free, the place for muttering, c'est la vie. Veronica Place, she said, as she read the sign out loud. My ears are burning, she heard a woman say, a woman who appeared to be standing right behind her. There's no way to know if a voice belongs to a woman, but sometimes you just do know, and this time Anne knew. Excuse me, she said, turning around. The other woman was beautiful. She had clothes and hair. You said my name, the other woman said as she brushed her heavy bang to the side. Veronica Place. That's me. But I thought that Veronica Place was the name of this building. Anne was confused. This was all wrong. The breath left her lungs. Her vision went black. Is it named after you? Do you own this apartment complex? No, said Veronica. I just live here. I'm Veronica. Veronica Place. Oh, said Anne, her vision returning. Well, it's nice to meet you, Veronica. I'd like to live here. In fact, I signed a lease. Do you mind if I live here too? That's not up to me, but sure. Oh, good, Anne sighed, her freckles sizzling red. Her hair was red too. You can just see her now. I'm Anne, by the way. Anne Instagram. Anne extended her hand towards her new chestnut-haired neighbor. It's a beautiful family name. Veronica Place, the other woman repeated as she slid her bang over to the other side of her forehead. She extended her hand to meet Anne's, but instead of shaking it up and down as the custom of some, even many, might dictate, she scratched her middle finger up and down the center of Anne's palm, her stroking just as rhythmic as a finger can hope to be. Anne's eyes widened. Murderer, she gasped. Veronica, Veronica said. No, I mean murderer, she clarified. The game. It was a game. We all used to play it when I was a child. I thought we all did. Well, I don't play games, said Veronica. I win them. She parted her bang down the middle of her forehead and tucked half of it behind either ear. I'm going home now. I live there. Veronica Place, the woman, pointed at Veronica Place, the building. And before I forget, it's almost pool time. The pool is significant. I'll see you at the pool. The pool? Anne caught herself. Of course, Veronica. The pool. Till pool then, Veronica. Till pool then, Anne. And with that, Veronica slinked away from Anne with all the grace and elegance of 1,000 Pepperidge Farm Purelines. Pleased with herself for playing it cool, Anne felt uneasy following the exchange. Hopeful, but uneasy. Optimistic, but confused. The world beyond her marriage was full of surprises, it seemed. Sometimes a woman will sound like a woman, but sometimes her name will be a building's name too. And although she had been aware that Veronica Place had a pool, as the ad in the Catherinesville Gazette had told her as much, Said ad had not detailed anything further, like the hours, the rituals, if you could drink from it and when. But Anne would learn to adapt, as all divorcees must. She would find her place among Veronica and all the other women. The women of this place, Veronica Place.
Right?
Something now, or do
All
you
right.
want to do that?
Would you like
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Very nice, of course.
All right. Hello. So as mentioned before, I'm working on a biography of this musician Klaus Nomi, who his career was about 5 years in the late 70s and early 80s. He passed very young. He was 39. And anyway, I picked a brief section in the middle of the book where I kind of interrogate his own thoughts towards his gender. He had this one interview with a very young Michael Musto, and there's a lot of very interesting things that he says and things that are asked. So I kind of try to take it from there. This was April of 1979, and there's a lot of quotes and people whose names won't mean anything out of context, but hopefully you get the gist. Even before the interview appeared in print, there are some signs that things between the two parties were prickly, to say the least. Michael recalled the circumstances of their meeting. Klaus came to my low-rent apartment in Manhattan for the interview, and I found him to be ingratiating if a little stiff, perhaps uncomfortable with our cultural differences, or maybe not totally trusting me. This feeling was likely amplified by the fact that Musto, to Klaus's chagrin but to our benefit, insisted on asking Klaus rather direct questions about his gender identity and sexuality, and such lines of questioning come to define the tenor of the entire interview. Klaus's responses are predictably evasive, but they nonetheless offer some revealing glimpses and provide a framework to explore Klaus's increasingly public attitudes towards gender and sex this time. And I have some longer quotes of Klaus's. I'll use a slight German accent, so you know what I mean, Klaus. I think that in the 80s we will probably be over this complex of heightened self-expression. People are afraid to come out of their closets, especially men, because a man walking around in makeup is sort of extreme. Some people call it decadent. Or else, also they identify me with being homosexual or transvestite. There's no comment on that. Being categorized makes me not want to be in either of those categories. Just as Joey insisted to me, Joey is Klaus's executor and good friend, who's a major source. Downtown at this time believed any labels to be bad labels and shunned the entire paradigm altogether. And to be fair, Klaus's interests and identity aren't easy to label, especially by contemporary standards. He was a gay man who occasionally slept with women, and he was a cisgender man who loved embodying feminine affectations. Is this look an attention getter for you? He's asked. I think it's just fun, because I feel wearing makeup and interesting clothes make me feel like a different person. It's just a cheap trick, because women do it too, and I found out that they have a lot of fun this way. And most men don't even know that. When I created this look about 3 or 4 years ago, it was too early. People were throwing garbage at me. But what I'm doing right now goes perfectly with what I am. It's just me, and I don't make compromises anymore. What you were saying before is interesting, that other people may see you as freaky, but you don't necessarily see yourself that way. Weirdness is in the eye of the beholder. Far more than the average man in 1979, Klaus did have a proclivity for wearing clothing typically associated with women, as well as makeup, nail polish, and other accoutrements. But as when he walked by Glenn O'Brien on the street, Klaus was also well known for wearing leather queen drag of a leather vest, pants, and engineer's cap, all designed to convey sadomasochistic overtones, though curiously often with lipstick and nail polish. The entire effect came off to most as campy, ironic, or at the very least insincere. As his friend Adrian affirmed, Klaus was very into the leather bondage look, but he wasn't that way. He was very sweet. And this is all to say that to the degree that visual presentation denotes gender, with Klaus such a classification was difficult to make. Perhaps the safest way to describe him, therefore, is that the label of man was almost certainly too limiting. Are people surprised when they hear your voice? It sounds like a castrato, so he sung in a very high countertenor voice. But I'm not a castrato. I know I wasn't implying that you are. People have been asking whether I take female hormones. I've been training my voice, that's all. Joey and others make it clear that Klaus did not think about gender the way we might today, and Klaus never said anything that hinted at explicit gender questioning, gender fluidity, or transgenderism. He would have likely known about several prominent trans women like Christine Jorgensen and Candy Darling, and had undoubtedly made the acquaintance of many drag performers like Ethel Eichelberger, Everett Quinton, and Divine. but he seems to have felt no real kinship with either contingent, aside from seeing gender as a form of performance to be interrogated. In fact, many of Klaus's own words suggest the opposite of kinship, such as his reaction here to the suggestion of androgyny. How do you think our society is progressing sexually? Are we heading into an era of decadence? I don't know. I'm not very active these days, so therefore my energy goes towards other things. I had been in a state of being very active sexually, and I found that I didn't do much else. Right now I'm using my energy just for being creative, and I hardly think about sex. Could that be because you're so, ellipsis, unusual looking that people may not want to sleep with you? What a question! Well, I think they're scared of me. They think I'm going to nail them to the floor. They think I'm a vampire. Maybe they think I'm into S&M or something. There is no answer to either of those things. As for what I like sexually, the answer is omni, everything. Do you see a lot of androgyny around you? In this room? No, I mean in general. Yeah, quite a bit, I would say. People seem to hold you up as an example of that. Yeah, but I enjoy sex, so I'm not fanatic about it. I don't know anything about androgyny. What is androgyny? Sexlessness? I'm not really sexless. I have a weenie, too. What is sexless? If I was sewed up or something? I don't think androgynous people don't enjoy sex. They're just sort of on the thin line between the sexes. I don't want to talk too much about androgyny because then people won't be interested in sleeping with me. Shorten this section. The section wasn't shortened, and the last line is especially telling. Despite an affinity most men have for female pop stars, actresses, opera singers, and the like, the mode of sexuality inhabited by most gay men still admits no place for those outside the masculine gender norm. As many gay men with feminine leanings can attest, it often feels easier to sacrifice a morsel of self-expression for a chance at febrile pleasure. And I will stop right there. Oh, thank you. I've heard so many interviews with him, it's just like seeped in.
Oh, yeah. I met somebody like, oh, you should be in a production of like Hedwig or something like that. I'd love to hear you do that.
Okay. So, I'm sure we don't have enough time for me to ask you what a woman is.
Yeah.
But can you explain to us
I
what,
can do it in 3 words or less. No.
what is a normal woman?
A normal woman, I love to be specific and clear, so I will say she is openly normal. To elaborate, I think she is normal about things one should be normal about, not normal in the way where it's kind of fascist and gross. I think that's very clear answer.
I think that's actually very succinct, yeah. I think your book seems to be part of a strong lineage of queer writers and essayists. And can you tell us about some of the writers who influenced you?
For sure. I would say that there are like some fiction elements that influenced me, like Tori Peters, or when I first read, Infect Your Friends and Loved Ones is now in this collection she released called Stag Dance, but I was reading it when she like self-published it through I think Amazon Commons, something like that. Like she didn't even technically own the rights to it just to get it distributed in 2017, and I was like, oh my god, you can write about like community and just be honest and be a bitch and like talk shit about people and air out dirty laundry. I love it without also somehow selling yourself out for some outside like pandering gaze or something. And so that's definitely was an influence before I'd ever even written anything more worthy of reading than an aggregated blog post or something. I would say other writers who have influenced me, I love like Margot Jefferson's Negroland, reading that. Just there was a way that from the very beginning I love how she engaged with a narrative about growing up in sort of like an earlier, like a lineage of like upper middle class, like black bourgeois Americans, and in a way that like felt like a distinctive narrative and lineage that didn't just sort of rely on sort of like speaking in broad wheeze. It was very like I statement oriented. I love an I statement. I hope my writing about like transness or trans womanhood always reflects like an adherence to an I statement, so not just being like, we are all sitting at Provincetown Bookshop right now, Eastern Bookshop right now in Provincetown, when it's just, I am sitting here, you know? Those are definitely two big influences.
Can you tell us, so you have done a lot of journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the journey from being an online journalist, blogger, content aggregator, to writing an essay collection?
Yes, I recommend it. It's great. I recommend not writing for the internet anymore after writing 4,000 blog posts for mtvnews.com about Miley Cyrus's Instagram. This is a lot more fun, I have to say. On the bright side, though, the websites you write for 10 years ago won't exist, so no one can read those old blog posts, which is great.
I had one essay to get taken down permanently.
Oh, really? Yeah. Sometimes it's really sad. Other times it's like, oh, good riddance. But I mean, that's one of the major things that I'm grateful for about. Oh, bless you. I think I heard a sneeze over there. Grateful for about like having like a book, or like anytime I, on rarer occasion, get to write for like a print magazine. I love just like a physical object. I think in part because of how like, you know, private equity has destroyed almost every single website I've worked for full time. Something like Fusion doesn't exist. Vice News took down their coverage that I had written for. MTV News doesn't exist anymore. The list goes on and on and on. Mike.com was shut down for a while. Jezebel nearly was like shut down, but then revived on Paste Magazine. To have like a permanent physical object was just a really, I don't know, it's great. I'm so glad, even if like the internet goes down forever, I'm like, well, I saw this book you can all read in the cave. Someone has fire, then we have my book.
So you were approached to write this collection.
Yeah, I was approached by the acquiring editor, Ben. So Katie Nishimoto is the editor I work with directly. She's amazing. And the editor who bought it was Ben Greenberg, and he was a fan of a column I was doing for W at the time, and then he read more of my work, he said, and liked that too. He was like, you ever thought about writing an essay collection? And I was feeling very burnt out on nonfiction, anything resembling media writing after getting laid off the year before, and I was like, I'm gonna ghost write, I'm gonna like write fiction, I never want to write nonfiction again. And then he was like, do you want to write a book? I was like, well, yes, I all the time. I'm glad I said yes and got over myself, because I'm really happy with what came out of it.
So there's 16 essays in here.
I think so.
How many had you written already for like various sites?
The longest sort of chunk I had this, there's an essay in there. I still call it the Working Girls essay because originally it started as this like 1,200 word film criticism piece for that clothing site. It's either Sense or Essence or something, but it's not Essence, the like women's magazine. I was writing something for them about Lizzie Borden's Working Girls and the sort of portrayal of like the brothel madam on screen, and sort of like portrayals of like female bosses in the workplace more broadly. And somehow in working on it, I think expanding into Devil Wears Prada territory, and then I was like, oh, Anne Hathaway is also a boss now in The Intern, that Nancy Meyers movie. Suddenly my brain was like, you should write about your experiences in workplaces through like Anne Hathaway's cinematic universe fan fiction. And then it exploded into like 8,000 words, 9,000, 10,000, and I was like to my editor, I think I gotta pull this and just see where it takes me. And I ended up using it as kind of like a cornerstone for this book. Everything else, that a lot of it, things about like trans women's reproductive health care, were pieces I had been working on, and editor had killed it because it was suddenly like not on brand, or they didn't understand the value of it. The Greer Langton piece, I had been pitching a Greer Langton, just anything about Greer Langton for years, and just editors were like, what's the news peg? And I was like, I don't, like, go to hell. I don't know, like.
I've gotten that with Klaus.
Yeah, it's just
like, yeah, I don't see why we would do this now.
And I'm like, I don't know, let me find like the 42nd anniversary of their death.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? Like,
can I be the news?
Yeah, like you alone working on it.
Yeah. You're
gonna do an amazing job, so like just publish it. I don't know. It's so you can't say that though, because then they're just like, well, now I'm definitely right, and I'm not publishing this. But that was a big thing. I was like, oh, I got the first chunk of the advance came in. I booked a flight to Pittsburgh and a hotel stay, and went to the Mattress Factory to go to the installation of her work there, like the archive. And overall, like a guiding sort of directive I gave for myself when I didn't know the full scope of the book when I started was just like write what you would write if you don't have, you know, too short word counts, if you don't have like small-minded editors sort of deciding what is or isn't newsworthy about your work, when you know that you know better than they do, like when you don't have to worry about ad space deciding how many pages you might get on a website or a magazine. And Yeah, I was definitely thinking of it as almost like Harron magazine until it kind of finally took shape.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of our issue.
So in at least one of the essays, you really talk about your retail experience and how that led you to think about gender and about trans identity. Anybody, I work in retail, anyone else here work in retail, does something public facing? Okay, maybe it's just us. Jeff is. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the essay, it's there's like an introductory essay that takes place in the present. You could say it's Mike and Harron go to the movies, overhear fun conversations in the bathroom. But the real like start of the book is the next one, going chronologically. It's called Pick Me. It's this. It takes place in like 2017 to 2018. I was working at this like boutique at the Ace Hotel at a unnamed luxury hotel in New York City, selling knickknacks and tchotchkes, favorite of which is this like $16 piece of orange yarn that is there to teach kids to, quote, visualize, that kind of place. And I just like transitioned like right before I started working there, and a big part of a thread of the essay is basically my mindset was very much like excited by this like wide open like world in front of me of choices and autonomy, but also terrified and just kind of like looking for someone to swoop in and tell me what to do, whether that's like some random man or like a boss who's like, by the way, here's a job. And so it's a lot of me applying for jobs, not getting them, being mad about that, trying to pitch freelance pieces, trying to date, it not working out, men coming into the store, me being like, are we in love? And them being like, okay, bye, dude. And I was like, okay, cool. So I think that was, I sort of write about that, this interesting way where you're working like retail or another kind of public-facing job like that. You kind of, you get an immediate snapshot, or like you basically find out what people immediately think about you and make sense of you without processing on their end. They kind of take one look at you and are like, oh, hey man, hey dude, hey sir. Like it's just not even thinking, it's like instinctive. And how much that then sort of like became this thing of like gamifying like every day, like, oh, what if I like, it's 2017, so it's like, what if I show up in like some horrible YouTuber drag beat with like all highlighter, no blush, looking crazy at 8 a.m. and like, oh wow, I can't believe they don't think I'm a cis woman. Like, let me try something else there. Changing like the way I look, the way I dress, the way, I don't know, just trying to like see how many times I get misgendered on a daily basis at that job. I guess trying to find something constructed out of what would otherwise just be like soul killing on a near hourly basis, you know.
And you've now escaped retail.
Yes, now I am retail adjacent,
Retail
working
adjacent.
on e-commerce photo shoots for an unnamed furniture company.
Yes.
Who can also go to hell. But
Great. Which of these essays are you the most proud of, or which feels the most personal to you?
well, that one, on one level, it's that essay, the Pick Me essay, because so right before working on this book, I'd started writing fiction for the first time, and something that was so freeing about it compared to like media writing was that the character could be an asshole, they could be a murderer, they could be really hateful in their spirit, and that differed from a lot of the personal essays I was writing, where I always felt like I was almost on like, I don't know, at least for me, it's like when I was writing like nonfiction work, there was always this feeling of like all of my ethics and morals and choices are on the like I'm on the defensive. The reader has to know that I'm smart and I'm moral and I make good choices even when I make mistakes, and fiction was freeing on that front.
Mm-hmm.
And so writing about my past self without constantly giving into this impulse I had to be like, but don't worry, I'm smart now. Like, don't worry, I wouldn't make this choice now or something. I'm proud with how I managed to do that. I think I managed to let myself just be an idiot and stand by that without disclaiming it. And I'm really happy about the like 5-part, 5 different essays that form this like 5-part story of like trans women's reproductive health care and access to it, sterility, fertility, all the above, and like many different like formal approaches to that, from like this kind of satirical, overly pedantic academic to something more like magazine-style journalism, something more polemic, which is sort of what I read earlier about Medicaid, and then something a little more like personal essay-ish. And I was just happy to finally work on that. That was a story that, as I said, had been like killed by an editor, and I was like, I just want to do this. I don't know. There's so much talk of like, I mean, Tori Peters' Detransition Baby is like a best-selling book that's all about like trans women and motherhood. There's so much writing about trans women and motherhood from our perspectives even, but I wanted to approach it from less of like the personal angle and more of the like, what are the actual like structural, like approach it from a structural angle and see like what actually is creating this synonymity, what's the word, with transness and infertility, given it's also heavy politicization right now about like not letting kids transition because it'll like damage their fertility or something.
Yeah. So related to that and the news and what you read, what's like a trans issue that you think is being underreported right now, and what's one that you think maybe is being blown out of proportion?
Well, underreported for sure. I mean, like the impact that the getting Medicaid coverage for trans healthcare would have. It's like trans people are made poor by like our government, and therefore, you know, millions of trans people are on Medicaid, and it's I think just about half. If you asked me while I was working on the book, I could give you like exact stats, but it's all in here. Definitely like about like 24 states have explicit like coverage and, you know, non-discrimination protections for people to access surgeries and hormones through Medicaid coverage, which is amazing. They also often have like, you know, similar protections for private insurance access. But removing that coverage would just have a huge, I mean, it would just shift access to trans healthcare to where it was a couple of decades ago. The last time when there was this push against allowing for insurance coverage to cover these things, make it a for-profit market, make it, or an out-of-pocket kind of market. I don't know, it's very, very much in tandem and parallel to like the ways that abortion has been restricted, and how like if you have the money to fly out of the country or whatever and access it privately, you still have means of accessing something, or cross state lines or what have you. But if you do not have that those kind of resources, then the impact's devastating. I think something I'm sick of is just the way that whether they are in support of or against like certain like say like content creators or TikTok influencers, I hate the way that like these social media platforms can kind of create a bubble effect where a conversation, instead of looking at like, oh, the like legislators, lawmakers, whatever, actually like making a certain marginalized group's life harder, it becomes a conversation around, is this content creator good or bad representation for the community?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care. This is a cell phone. You're the one whose algorithm is putting them in front of you over and over. Like, delete the app.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like,
It's so hard when like all this stuff is wrapped up in the attention economy.
oh, for sure. And it's all like quantified in a way, so it's like actually someone like pissing people off and seeking outrage actually does become a way for them to make money and get attention, or I don't know, leverage that into something else. But they're still not the one like passing laws against themselves.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about Veronica Place?
I would love to.
Where did that come from? What's the wellspring of that?
So that started in this group chat of mine with two other writers, Charlotte Shane and Jamie Hood. Both wonderful. Jamie's Trauma Plot is out this year, a couple months ago. And Charlotte, she owns Tiger Bee Press. Her books, Prostitute Laundry and Be An Honest Woman, all fantastic. Okay, I did my state mandated promo for my friends. We have this group chat, and it's kind of like a 24-hour phone call, and somehow we just kind of developed this cast of characters with these names like Ann Instagram and VM Freely and Kamala Landslide and just like this like whole list of names.
If only.
And Veronica Place was one of them, and they I just suddenly like was like, oh, what if I like, who are these women? Like, where did they live? What do they want? And kind of started writing this stupid little story to make them laugh, and just kind of snowballed from there. And I just finished the manuscript, if you will, for it. and Charlotte is interested in publishing it with her Soul Press Tiger Bee, which is great because I'm like, I don't know if I would trust anyone else to look at this unhinged work of fiction. So hopefully that'll be out in like the next year or something.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I made a point to read it today, so I'd be like, you have to finish editing this.
What pieces of media or content creators or artists, what's inspiring you right now?
Right now, I'm like, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really excited about this new documentary called Enigma about Amanda Lear and April Ashley.
That was just here at the film festival.
It was.
Right.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it.
Okay, I'm so excited to see it. She's so interesting. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first. I feel like it's something where, you know, her maybe or maybe not transness is like this sort of an open secret conversation, but one that she like. I just always love the way that people have been like, hey, so we found birth certificates and information. She's just like, no. And anyway, I'm just a famous Italo disco singer from the 70s, and I might be from Italy, I might be from France, I might be from Indonesia. I don't even know. Her Wikipedia, I think the first like line of it is like, born in 1948 or 1949 or 1953 or 1956 in Indonesia or Italy or France. Amanda Lear, I was like, already she's great. So I'm just excited there's like a full, I don't know, she's participating in something about herself. As much as I love the mystery, I also want to hear how she talks about the truth of herself or whatever her truths are. As Gaga once said something like, "What like," and I think the lie is more honest because I made it up. I think that's what it is. Who knows? Who's gonna fact check me? No.
And then my last question before we open it up is just what are you working on and what can we expect to see next?
Well, hopefully Veronica Place.
Yep.
Working on some short stories. Like there's some body horror, something more like thrillery, possibly murderous. I gotta write like a few more of those before I feel like I can rightfully call it like a collection, but hopefully that would not be out too much later.
Okay.
Sooner than later, as they say. Yeah.
And any essays or articles coming out or just continuously?
Right now, nothing. I just had a profile of the historian Jules Gill Peterson come out it's on Them and Wired, this like collaboration between the two.
Mm-hmm.
She's an incredible historian who also contributed to an amicus brief that was used in the Scrimeti Supreme Court case trial. Just sort of, one of her books is called Histories of the Transgender Child, and it's like a very empirical, evidence-based refutation of this idea that like Jazz Jennings invented being transgender on TLC as a child or something in 2008. That like, you know, there's a whole century-long history of, I guess, medical transition in a variety of different ways for people, you know, intersex and people you might consider transgender, like under the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
That's out. I think it's good.
Great. All right. Any questions?
We
for
got
Harron,
we got a question on here, and I I can pretty much answer, but you might have something else to say as well, and that's your essays, your articles, upcoming books can be found on your website.
So as soon as I update them,
That's
definitely
okay.
everything up to like January of this year is all the information's there.
And it's on our event page, but can you state your website so for people that are watching this later on?
So it's harronwalker.com, myname.com, and then my Instagram is HARNWAW. I think that's the best places to find me.
Right.
Do you ever say like Harnwall?
Yeah. In my head, I was like, don't say Harnwall.
And you mentioned the other question. I think basically the Enigma is going through the film festival circuits right now, so it'll probably be at a good festival like ours here in Provincetown coming up. And I wanted to mention, I don't know if you saw it, Derek, but I did see Sauna, which was also at the film festival, Provincetown Film Festival, a couple of weeks ago, which is another film that's you start out thinking you know where it's going, and it's very different. So it's ultimately a love story, but of younger people, one character from the countryside of the Netherlands coming into Amsterdam, I think it's Amsterdam, the major city, and who has a grinder hookup with somebody that is transitioning and wasn't aware, and then kind of this love story that happens, but also for a gay man, the gay man character not fully, fully understanding what this new partner is going through in terms of going through the transition process. And then even in a country that spends a lot of money and is very liberal and progressive on that care, a lot of the visits that they have to get, if you don't, like you said, if you don't have your own money and you need government money, was really condescending, and even among gay people, which of course we've seen this for years and still do. And I mean, in my other life, a long time ago, I was co-chair of the National Lesbian, Gay and Law Association, and I know in Florida, the state capital in Tallahassee, I wrote the human rights ordinance that we finally pushed through like 20 plus years ago. And I faced pushback from the queer community because the radical conservatives back then were doing what they're doing now. And what they're doing to attack general queer rights is to attack people in the trans community. And that was happening there, and people wanting to wait and first get the gay and lesbian protections before you try to get trans protections, which I refused to do, and we got it all through. But I mean, and here we are back again with all these kinds of things. So I just, anyway, I really admire, well, first of all, great writing, which yours is great writing, but I really admire the fact that you put yourself out there. And it's, it obviously is helping a lot of people who are going through the process right now and really need to see somebody strong out there who's speaking out. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, as a bookseller, it's also challenging when you have prominent people who kind of go brain dead and start attacking the trans community, and, one of which J.K. Rowling, so I mean, and bookstores my colleagues, we've had conversations at book conferences about it, and different bookstores handle it a different way. Like in my bookstores, I don't sell J.K. Rowling books anymore. It's on our website, and you can get anything in print on our website, but I don't have them in our stores because I'm just furious and fed up with that kind of attitude. And, it's a very tiny stand that I'm taking because I just have 2 bookstores, but it's something. And again, we have on the website, and I had to, and we talked about this at the last regional book conference, which is, it's tough because obviously when young kids come in, and you want to, they're like, where is it? I want the books. And so I kind of I explain quietly to the adults what our position is at the moment, and we can get it very quick on our website, and it's on there. But it's just, I feel like I don't feel comfortable having those books in our store, especially since she keeps doubling down and tripling down on her views vocally about that. And of course, as most people are aware, what's happened now in England.
Throwing her money behind
Mm-hmm.
Scottish campaign,
Yeah. So anyway, it just it's complex issues, but congratulations on the book. I'm sure it's doing well. It's doing well here and in our store in Boston, and I'm sure it's doing well in Derek's store as well. And it's just congratulations. And we'll throw it open to the audience for questions.
Piece, and I was wondering what kind of sparked you wanting to write about her and how you discovered her.
I think I learned about her when I was doing this piece for Out Magazine in like 2018 or 19 about like trans women's self-portraiture. So like work where it's like, actually us depicting ourselves, not just sort of being this like, figure in the work of like Peter Hujar, or like Andy Warhol's photography of Marsha P. Johnson or something, and great Polaroids, by the way. But I learned about her from this artist I was interviewing, Zachary Drucker, and looked at her sculptures and was like, this is amazing. I just had no idea that she existed. I just didn't. It's so silly to say now, but I was like, I just wasn't aware of a lot of like trans women artists, like visual artists at the time. And now that it's like, I don't know, you start like learning, you just like start learning about them. You're like, oh, there's, countless numbers of us. It's actually kind of a cultural idea that it's ingrained in all of us to think that like, oh, everyone's the first trans person to do this every year or something. And it's like totally not true. I mean, I am the first trans woman to write a book, but yeah, other than that, but, I just thought she was cool. Her dolls are crazy and kooky and ugly and beautiful and all the above. Yeah. for coming, everyone.
Yeah, and so we will have book signing in a moment, and then we'll have copies here for sale. Then I will, when I'm on the ferry, take some signed copies to our store in the seaport. So if people are not buying the book to have it shipped to them, but want to do store pickup, there's a drop-down menu on our website that says Ptown or Boston. So in just a few days, they'll be in Boston as well. And then, like I said, we'll continue to have signed copies as we can. And on your website as well, will people be able, or are you putting it on your website as well, upcoming book events? Or is it just on your socials that they should follow?
Yeah, on my socials, I'll post about all of them. If you're in Baltimore, I'll be there at the end of July. And Brooklyn, I have 1 or 2, maybe 3 events coming up in the next month. I forget, but stuff soon in both those.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.